Alright, so today we're going to be making a lower third. Lower thirds is just a bar that shows up at the bottom of your screen when you're interviewing or you're trying to give information about a scene or a person that's on the screen. It usually shows at the bottom. Our lower thirds is going to be animated using what we've learned in the previous lessons with text and with the movement and whatnot. So first thing I need you to do is import the file. So we're going to come to our project panel and we're going to double click. That brings up our dialog box. I'm going to choose the move file, the couple walking, and I'm going to click open. We could create a composition right from it, but I'm going to show you the steps just so you know. So we have our couple walking. I'm going to say new. I'm going to right click on it and say new comp from selection. All right. Now I'm also going to come down here and I'm going to right click again. I'm going to rename that file. So I'm going to call it interview. All right, so to do that, I just right clicked and I went to rename and I titled it interview. All right, next thing I want to do, this image, we want to make sure that it's fit to your screen. So check to make sure, but you can come down here and you want to make sure it says fit so that it's fit to your screen. Sometimes they come in and they're a little bit smaller and you want to be able to see the whole thing, so when we do our lower thirds down here at the bottom, it won't be completely cut. Now we're going to save it because we want to make sure that before we get going, we really have an idea of where everything's being saved to, and we can get to it if we need to. So I'm going to come over here. I have all completed, so I can save it to that folder. I'm just going to save it into this folder right here. I'm going to title it lower thirds, and I'm going to put my initials on it, underscore my initials, and I'm going to click save. All right, so that just gets that out the way, so I know where it's saved and it's not going to get lost. All right, so next thing we do, we check to see if it has audio. So I just turn on the sound icon, and now when I play this, it obviously doesn't have sound, but I don't think it had sound to begin with. All right. So remembering some of the things from our text animation, we're going to have a white box slide out and then text appear, and then both will exit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to my rectangle tool. So sometimes when you have let's say you have your layer selected and you go up to this rectangle tool and you drag across it, what it does is it creates a mask, and we don't want to have a mask. We want it to be an actual shape layer. So I'm going to undo that rectangle. I'm going to come down here and make sure I click away, and then I'm going to check my fill and my stroke. So right now my fill is white, my stroke is red, but since it says 0 pixels, it won't have a border on it. So now I'm going to drag out probably about a little bit less than halfway. I'm going to drag out a box for my lower third, and that should do it. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go find my text tool. So I have my text tool right here. On the right hand side, your character palette should show up when you click your text tool. If it doesn't, you can always go back and go up to Window and load up your character palette right there. I'm using Museo Slab. You can always click Add Adobe Fonts right here, and it takes you to the font website. And I would suggest doing this. You know, this is probably a good font to have. But you click right here. You can search for it, Museo. All right, so there's Museo, and then Museo Slab. So let's do Museo Slab is the one we have. All right, so what I did was I activated all 12 fonts. If your system runs slower, you might not want to activate all of them, but I used the 300s and the 700s. So you can just activate those if you like. All right, so I'm going to go back to, and I'm going to start typing. I have a purple color selected. You don't have to choose that. You can choose black if you like, but I'm going to come over here and I'm going to start typing. I want you to type in their names. We'll call them John and Linda. John and Linda, or an and sign. And then we're going to call them on. Right, and then I'm going to hit enter. And we're going to say gaming couple. I'm going to turn on caps lock. Gaming couple. Select this. I want to make that smaller. It's at 143. Probably let's drag it down to maybe 67. Maybe 70. That looks good. And let's take John and Linda. Let's put them at a little bit bigger. So I want this one at 300 or 700 and the other one at 300. So let's change this to 700, which is a heavier, bold looking font. And 300 looks good for this. Museo slab 300 looks good for that. So I'm going to put this in the middle here. So what happened, it couldn't refresh. If you look right here, it says refresh disabled because release caps lock to refresh. So I'm just going to turn off my caps lock to make sure that I can see the refreshes. And now I have my John and Linda. It says gaming couple. I think I'm going to write, and I'm going to put a dash. Dash 5 years. All right, and remember to turn off your caps lock. All right, so this is the lower third. So whenever you see that show up on something, you know, it usually has a nice, sometimes on the sports channels, they have a lot of motion into them. You can make it as complicated as you want or as simple as you want. Ours is just gonna zoom in and zoom out using what we've already learned. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna line this back up. All right, so I wanna make sure that I have everything going right here. So I have shape layer, and I'm gonna right click on that and rename that, title that lower thirds background. All right, so that I know that it's the background layer. So I want this lower thirds to kind of fade in, and then the text show up. So let's go about 1.5 seconds, and I'm gonna twirl down my caret right here, and it's another caret. I'm gonna go to transform. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set my opacity. So I'm gonna click stopwatch for opacity. I'm gonna drag that down to 0. All right, I'm gonna go a little bit further, maybe 2 seconds, almost 2 seconds. There's 2 seconds. It says right here 2 seconds. I'm gonna click a key point. So keyframe. I'm gonna drag this back up to 100. All right, so now it should fade in right there at 2 seconds. All right, now it's fading in, but I also don't want my text to be there as well. So, and I'm gonna have it start a little bit after the start of All right, so I still want it to fade in at 2 seconds, so I'm gonna grab this point, drag it back. Put it right on 2 seconds there. So let's see how it fades. Yeah, that's nice. Maybe a little bit more. All right, so next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on my text. So I got my text. All right, I'm gonna zoom out and hitting Command minus or Control minus. And what I wanna do is I wanna select my text layer, make sure I have my selection arrow, my selection tool. And I'm just gonna make sure my playhead is at the beginning of my my background start. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold down Shift as I drag my playhead, and it'll snap right to the edge of that. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag my text off, and then as I drag it, I'm gonna hold down Shift again. You wanna make sure you hold down Shift after you start dragging, not before. And I'm placing my text right off the page there at this marker. All right, so at this point I'm gonna click transform, And I'm going to click my position tool. So I'm going to click position stopwatch. So this is where I'm going to start my text. And I'm going to come a little bit so it's fading in. And right here at 2 seconds it's completely almost faded in. So I can still see his arm a little bit. I'm going to slide in my text. So I'm going to grab my text, drag it, holding shift now once I start moving it. And that looks good about right there. And my second point is in there. So maybe it's coming in a little bit too soon. So let's start. I'm gonna grab both of these points. I'm not gonna start it until right before it becomes solid. Yeah, that looks good. And it takes a little bit long time, so let me shorten that so it comes a little bit quicker. Yeah. Alright, so to increase it, you can go over here to fit and say fit. So we have our basic lower thirds, and we're gonna expand on this in the next lesson, but essentially this is where we want to be. I think we should do some easing in and easing out. So I'm going to select both points, just like we did in the last exercise. I'm going to right click on it and say keyframe velocity. I'm going to change this to 70%. For my easing incoming, my easing in. For my easing out, I'm going to change that to 70% and click OK. All right, let's see. Let's hit play, see how it looks. Fades in and it zooms in. Has a nice quick speed there. All right, so I'm going to stop this one here, and we're going to pick it up in the next video to finish our lower thirds.